This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Last week, Le Mans hosted the opening round of the season and gave us a truly wild finish. And though Formula One cars did actually race at the Bugatti layout of the famous French track the year the Lotus 49 competed, they never raced here at Laguna Seca. In fact, F1 only once flirted with the idea of holding a round at this California circuit. With the beauty of sim racing, we get to see what it may have been like if the US Grand Prix was held here in '67, as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Vandenbelt. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Johan, it's short, but it's challenging. Tell us about Laguna Seca.
Well, this is really one of those tracks, Joe, that you kinda don't have to introduce, as it being a free track on iRacing means that all road drivers have visited Laguna Seca countless of times. This circuit was built in 1957 near Monterey, California, and has seen tons of different racing series like IMSA, Can-Am, IndyCar and MotoGP. Now, Laguna Seca itself is defined by one corner in particular, the corkscrew. Drivers go blindly uphill before the corner, after which they plunge down 18 meters towards rainy curve. But besides this corner, another thing there is to keep in mind, as there are numerous gravel pits throughout the track that usually bring quite a bit of dirt onto the race. Like you mentioned, Joe, F1 never actually raced here in California, but despite this, the unofficial lap record here is driven by a Formula One car. Marc Gené in 2012 drove the 2003 Ferrari around this track in a 1 minute and 5 seconds. Now, I doubt that the drivers today will be able to go that quick in the Lotus 49, but to see how you get as close as possible, let's jump into the GSRC Lotus 49 as we take you for a lap around the track.
Alright, we're in the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Laguna Seca. Turn 1 is actually a turn in this car. You need a big lift to get over the hump, but make sure to keep it planted so that you can confidently get on the brakes down into the end ready hairpin. It'll be very easy to lose the rear under braking or just come in too hot and slide wide. Square off the exit and then try to get the car off to the left for the entry to turn 3. After that, you've got a short burst to turn 4, which will need a dab of the brakes. This is a corner where it'll pay off to be able to get to the power early. Anyone who can't find traction will be susceptible down into turn 5, where passes are likely to be attempted. But this uphill bend will punish your lap times if you don't keep it tucked in nicely to the apex. Once again, get on the gas as soon as you can to keep your momentum uphill. Then, the treacherous turn 6 needs a big stomp of the brakes, a smooth turn in, and a prayer. Since we're still trudging uphill, you guessed it, get onto the power quickly. Be wary of the car breaking loose on this climb though. Set up to the left and brake super early to get it woed up over the blind crest into the corkscrew. The compression at the bottom allows you to put your right foot down sooner than you'd expect, but you don't get much of it. Rainy curve needs a big lift to get the nose to tuck in the late apex. Then switch sides and slow it up for turn 10. Another corner with lots of banking, it pays to keep it all the way to the inside. Then you've got your last good chance for a pass, the final hairpin. Ideally though, you'll want to make sure and not sacrifice your corner exit because of the very quick front stretch. Hopefully you kept it all together and have finished a lap around Laguna Seca.
Up and down the dusty hills here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, the official name here of the track, but everybody mostly just knows it as Laguna Seca. Now let's take a look at the championship because we've got a round in, and as you would expect, it pretty much follows how they finished last week. Michel Dudignon ahead of Mick Claridge by only 5 points. Ove Trangrade came on third, and then Thiel and Pawlowski round out your top 5. So really not too many surprises. What about the Formula 2 championship though, Johan?
Yeah, also unsurprisingly, the results reflect the race results from Le Mans, with Ryan Garbin getting P7 in that race, and he is now leading the Formula 2 Championship. Steve Hogan, another name he follows behind on 3 points. And then we finally see a name that we recognize from last season, Hecox. He's 6 points trailing. He's currently in 3rd place. David Rossi, one of the drivers to watch this season, is 4th. And Don Good, he rounds out the top 5 of the Formula 2 standings.
One thing that could be mixed up is the constructors, as it is based by nation. So France up at the top, of the UK finishing in 2nd. Then you've got Norway, the US, and Germany. Unfortunately, keeps it exactly as it was, but it will be jumbled around a little bit as more than one driver can contribute points per race. Let's take a look at the race details as we're on a trend of things being as expected, Johan.
I think that this one is the one that changes the most because we drive at round 2 of a 12-round championship. You see 2 watermarks. That means that there's 2 drop races this season. In other words, the 2 worst results of each driver will be removed in their championship battle. The race here at Laguna Seca will be 24 laps with open setup, so the drivers can tweak the cars just to their liking. The points they pay out to 25th position. Now that's one thing to keep in mind, Joe, as there are exactly 25 drivers today.
And as always, you can see those 25 drivers race around Laguna Seca here on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe when you get the opportunity. All you got to do is go to the YouTube page, click the big red button that says subscribe, and you get all of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series in your YouTube feed. So we're on board with Michel Dudignon as he comes to the line. Let's see what he's got underneath him. It looks like it is good enough for pole. So the lack of surprises continue. What about Mick Claridge, though?
He is on the rundown towards the corkscrew corner at the moment. Behind Michel Dudignon at the moment, Eduardo Prado. He's currently sitting in P2. Ove Trangrade rounds out the top 3. Very warm conditions today, I have to say. I had a quick look at the weather. 42 degrees Celsius track temperature. Celsius-wise, it's around 50 degrees Celsius more than it was in practice for most of the drivers. As we look at Mick Claridge, who's currently coming out of the last corner, this will be his first qualifying lap. He has to beat at 20.5 to get pole position. He does at 20.5, but he's 100th of a second slower than Michel Dudillon. He splits Dudillon with Eduardo Prado. He gets on the front row.
Oof, that stays how it is. This could be a real cracker today. I'm surprised at Eduardo Prado. Maybe I'm remembering him from a different series, but I don't remember him being this competitive here in the 49. This is Trangarade that we're watching. He's currently sitting in 5th, his first lap at a 1:21.4. He's got a little less than a second up to the pole, so not impossible that he could get down to that. A 20.9 does put him on the second row. That is good enough for 3rd.
Michel Dudillon didn't improve in the second qualifying lap. He was exactly 0.2 of a second slower than his first effort. Eduardo Prado as well didn't go any quicker. So the only person that can actually make a change is Mick Claridge, who is actually sliding through the corkscrew corner. So I think that that's his second chance ruined as well. He's now going through Rainy Curve. He will have a few more laps to go before we can see how quick he actually is going this lap. And after that small mistake in the corkscrew, I doubt that he will go quicker than his 20.5 that he currently is having. And he looks very slow here as well, not choosing really the optimal racing line through the final corner. He knows that that effort is wasted, and he'll probably try some practice starts, because that's going to be very important here, Joe. Once he and Michel Dudillon will start side by side on that line to get away quicker than the Frenchman and beat him as the Rossi and Andretti hairpin.
That seems to be an edge that Mick has been trying to take advantage of in the past few seasons, is working on his starts, changing the gearing a little bit to get a better start, doing every little trick that he can to try and find a way past Michel early. As we watch Roman Pawlowski work his way around, Stefan Schlocker's coming across for his first time, which will not count. So Stefan's going to be under the gun, and does he actually have enough time to finish?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. So
and that's one of the drivers that we usually see reasonably well in the top 10, I would say, Joe. Like basically around we see of course on the left side of the screen now all the times so far set. I would expect Stefan Schlager to put himself right there between Billy Bob Wright, Bruce Snelson, around the top 10 position. Let's see if he can actually manage that time of a 1:22 flat.
Credit to Rob Olynyk, who's managed to put it in 5th in his qualifying. He is the current champion from last season, so he will be trying to defend that. He's looking at another potential top 5. Stefan comes up to the corkscrew. Let's see how he takes it down this famous corner. Nice and tidy in the first apex, maybe slightly off the second one, but well on his way from what so far looks like a clean lap.
Two more corners to go. These are probably the most easy corners off the track. Or at least a lot easier than the corkscrew and turn 6 beforehand. Around the last corner, a lot of drivers are struggling with putting the power down in that final corner. Cars are very twitchy there. He stays all the way on the outside, comes across the line, 22.3. A little bit slower than we expected. He actually loses control of his car afterwards. It doesn't matter anymore because he puts himself in the top 10.
Yeah, good prediction there, Johan. So just barely squeaked in time. Pretty sure everybody else has finished, and they definitely have now because the checkered flag is out. So let's go through your starting order. Michel Dudillon will be on the pole with Mick Claridge just barely behind him in second. Ove Trangarade starts third. Outside of row 2 has Eduardo Prado. Rob Olynyk will be P5 with Ian Hecox on the outside of that row. Roman Pawlowski 7th and Hugh Hecox in 8th. Billy Bob Wright starts 9th and Stefan Schlager rounds out your top 10.
Outside of that, Bruce Snelson starts in P11. He is being flanked by Philip Urquhart. On row 7, it's Steve Hogan next to David Rossi. Graham Patullo can be found on P15, just in front of Andrew Eng. Don Good starts the race in P17 in front of Telmo Amaral. And on row 10, we find Colin Coker and Andres Bruno.
My favorite names in the series, Marco Ravioli starts 21st with Giulio Forcolin in 22nd. Jeff Bixby starts 23rd, Jasmine Beach 24th, and Matthew Wilkinson was the only one that did not get a lap time in qualifying. He'll be tail end Charlie on the field. They're all getting ready to grid up at this point. We're waiting on just a couple cars to get out there on this very uphill starting grid that they have here at Laguna Seca. We've seen some big accidents through turn 1 at this track before. Hopefully we don't get that today. It's a little bit less tricky, even though they can suffer some wheel spin around that corner, being in lower gears here at the start. It is a pretty decent sized field, but we like to see that here in the Lotus 49 series. The last of them finds their way to the grid. So the engines start to rev. The lights come up here for round 2. Green flag is out. Michel Dudignon with a good jump off the line. Someone back there got a horrible start. I think that was Ove Tranquerade. Already around the outside, we're seeing a challenge from Mick Claridge into the Andretti hairpin, but he backs out of it once they hit the braking. They all stream down a few 3 wide, but otherwise it's looking relatively clean.
No, clean. Oh, there's a car off in the backfield. Who is that? Actually goes very far. It's Stefan Slager. He took a trip through the gravel. Gets it back there. I don't think he has damage. He can continue. He seems to be the only one who's actually visiting the gravel. But we don't see Rob Olynyk, it seems like. It seems like Olynyk didn't make or didn't have a very good start. He's a little bit further down the field. Only P11. Started the race at P5, so already dropping back 6 positions.
I think Stefan's unhappy with his setup because he just had another spin on the first lap. We don't need to go back and look at it, but he went off at turn 5. Meanwhile, the front have already hit the corkscrew and are plunging downhill. Mick is giving chase, but he's being chased by Ove Tranquerade. Eduardo Prado is still on him. We got a couple cars off at the corkscrew. Andrew Ang is in there, and it looks like Matthew Wilkinson also went off into the gravel.
All the way up front, all the cars that are on podium positions at this moment are still reasonably close together. Mick Claridge seems to lose a little bit of connection to Michel Dudignon, but he's still within 6/10 of the Frenchman. Behind him, Ove Tranquerade can follow. Ove Tranquerade was one of the drivers with quite a good start initially, but that second part of the start, Joe, where you really get the car going, that's where Mick Claridge made the difference, and he just basically countered the good start that Ove Tranquerade had and also could challenge Michel Dudignon. Now, unfortunately for Mick Claridge, he didn't make the pass, but allows him to keep P2 and put some pressure on the Frenchman for the lead.
Yeah, honestly, the first big gap we've got is from 5th to 6th. That's between Pawlowski and Wright. And then you've got the second train. There you see that first train coming up the hill through turn 6, where the top 3 is starting to separate themselves slightly from Prado back there in 4th, but I'm not sure that there's really any reason to shout yet.
A lot of single file driving. I don't see any side-by-side action at the moment. It's of course very difficult to put the car side-by-side here and stay side-by-side for the whole lap. So many quick direction changes that you really want to be on the optimal line all the time to get the maximum out of the car. If we go a little bit further down the field to Ian Hecox, he's being challenged by Bruce Nelson. It's the battle for P8 if I'm correct. Ian Hecox started his lap in P7, was overtaken by his son Hugh Hecox, if I got that correct. And Bruce Nelson got by, although in the last corner Bruce Nelson lost a little bit of pace, and he has to make it up now.
Easy way for me to remember is that the son is over in France studying at university, so I just always check the clubs to figure out which one's which. So they now come through turn 3 once again. Ian doesn't really have anything for Hugh quite yet, though he's hanging on to him. Billy Bob Wright at the front of those two. Up towards turn 5, steep uphill left-hander where the car starts to compress. You want to get the power down, all 3 of them taking it nice and smooth.
One driver who just went into the pits is Rob Olynyk. I'm trying to find out what actually happened with him. I have the feeling that Rob Olynyk had a false start and had to serve a black flag last time around. So at the moment, Rob Olynyk is all the way down in P23. He has a long battle ahead for him if he wants to score some good points here at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, I think you might be right, because I saw him head in what I thought was at the end of the first lap. Meanwhile, it looks like we've come back down to this group of Billy Bob Wright, Hugh Hecox, Ian Hecox, as well as Snelson, Urquhart, Rossi, and Hogan all together. This is a huge train. This brings up an interesting point. What we've seen in the past with this car, it seems it's pretty difficult as a big slide from Billy Bob Wright through the Andretti hairpin that he catches. a bit difficult, Johan, to try and pass around this track.
Absolutely, it's really difficult. You don't have a lot of long straights where you can draft or something, get your car side by side. It's a very short circuit, short straights, and that makes it difficult to put it side by side. You really have to be always alert, put your car right in the gearbox of the car in front and just hope for a mistake of the person in front and then capitalize on that. We saw Billy Bob Wright almost do that, and you can see Hecox almost sniffing that mistake happening another time and just getting as close as possible to get that P6 position. I have to say, Billy Bob Wright, he doesn't look very comfortable at the moment. He's driving in the 23s, high 23s. It's almost 2 seconds slower than he was in qualifying. So maybe with some fuel in his car, Billy Bob is just not as comfortable as with his qualifying setup. And that's hurting the race pace of all these drivers behind, because the gap between Billy Bob Wright and Roman Pawlowski in front in P5 is almost 6 seconds. It's growing every single lap.
The younger Hecox is really hassling right now. He is less than 0.3 of a second behind. But we've seen Billy Bob Wright withstand a lot of pressure in the past. He's a fierce defender when he wants to be. And so far, he hasn't had to do too many defensive moves, but he might soon with the way that they keep getting closer to that gearbox.
One driver that's on the move at the moment is a driver in P14, Stefan Slager. We saw him make 2 mistakes in the opening lap, Joe, so he dropped all the way down to P25. At the moment, back to P14, harassing Don Good at the moment for P13. Actually trying a move there into turn 3, gets it done. That's already half the field that he has overtaken again. Stefan Slager really with the bit between his teeth now, trying to make up for that lost time in the opening lap.
It's actually impressive he's made up that many spots that quickly. In the meantime, Hugh Hecox did have a go at Billy Bob Wright into turn 5, but it didn't work out. He stays behind, and this actually backs him up a little bit, so he's got to regroup and try again.
I'm actually curious if Ian and you are in contact with each other, if they're helping each other a little bit, or if they're just, when the race starts, all communication is off and we just treat each other like any other competitor. Because if they actually are communicating with each other, then the good news for you, Hecox, is that he has a family member behind him, so he doesn't really have to look in his rearview mirror, and he can just focus on attacking Billy Bob Wright and get by him as soon as possible. You can see him get out of the last corner, squirming on the throttle. That's not helping his speed going towards turn 1.
You know, I almost wonder if you're right, because they seem to be pretty close on pace most times that we see them. So they at least seem to be sharing either setup or racing line tricks to one another, because they just always seem to be stuck together. Even though Hugh Hecox was very close for quite a while, since he dropped off this last lap, he has not regained the time that he lost.
It's difficult. We mentioned it before. We showed the temperatures conditions at this race earlier. 41 degrees Celsius, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And those are warm conditions, so the tires might be a little bit more difficult to handle for the drivers, especially to keep in mind that the practice sessions before the race started, Joe, they were really cool. They were something like 26, 27 degrees Celsius, around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So the difference in temperature might catch some of the drivers out, and they need a few laps to adapt to the new weather conditions and really get the maximum out of their Lotus 49.
Michel Dudignon is still our leader, and Mick Claridge has been staying within about a second and a half, but he doesn't seem to be a match for Michel here today. And unfortunately, like last week, like Johan mentioned, there is not the draft that you have on the long straights of Le Mans. So it seems to be falling back inch by inch. They have dropped Ove Trangrade, who is a whole 3.3 seconds back from them, holding down the final spot of the podium. He's being challenged by Eduardo Prado, who I mentioned has impressed me so far this race. He's backing up that pace in qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not really challenging over Trangrade at the moment, Eduardo, but he's staying right in front of Roman Pawlowski, and Roman is not in any condition to put Prado under pressure at this point of the race.
Colin Coker is off at the Andretti hairpin. He had some help as well.
Ooh, Marco, yeah.
Yeah, looks like Marco outbraked himself a little bit because he came from a long way back and he knew it, and he was trying to get out of the way. But unfortunately, there was a car at the apex. Coker with enough damage that he actually had to take a tow, and he has since come into the pits.
You have to wonder if this was a conscious overtaking opportunity from Marco, or maybe just actually losing control of his car and trying his hardest to get it slowed down before the hairpin. Well, the result doesn't matter in the end. Colin Coker has damage. He's sitting in the pits, and it seems to be a while before he can go out. Again, Jasmine Beats is another driver 1 lap down, and Matthew Wilkinson, he's our only retiree so far, classified to P25.
And Mother Nature is taking some mercy on the drivers. You can see the clouds have come out, and it's cooled the track down a couple degrees, not drastically, but at least somewhat to give them slightly more grip. We jump back to Ian and Hugh, still trying to chase down Billy Bob Wright. And we've got something of a battle for 11th. This is between Rossi and Hogan. Implications in the Formula 2 championship here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is on the tail end of the group behind Billy Bob Wright a few laps ago. Now these two drivers have dropped off a little bit, same as Bruce Nelson and Philip Urquhart in front of them. But these two drivers, they're the only two that actually stay together despite that. So this battle for P11 is heating up at the moment. Steve Hogan seems to be a little bit quicker at the moment, trying to put David Rossi under pressure. But we mentioned it before, it's so difficult to overtake here. David Rossi is having a good race, however. He started at P14, so he already won 3 positions so far. It doesn't really matter if you're a little bit slower than the driver behind. It is so easy to defend here compared to other tracks. It goes a little bit wide though in the final corner. That might give Steve Hogan an opportunity over the start-finish straight, over turn 1. Difficult corner here, the car gets very loose. You need to get as soon as possible on the throttle again, but David Rossi has the best run through turn 1. Once they reach a dirty hairpin, all that mistake has been equalized. You go back to single file.
Rossi's starting to feel a little bit under threat. He went defensive, holding the middle of the track down into the hairpin. So Steve Hogan is going to have his work cut out for him to get by. They swing their way through turn 4, not nearly as close as he was on the front stretch. So Rossi has now responded. Just trying to put some buffer between himself and the number 14. Not even halfway through this race, and though the passes look to be a bit rare and a bit difficult, the pressure is certainly on a few drivers, including this one, Billy Bob Wright. Hugh Hecox, has finally run him down. A little bobble coming out of Rainy Curve, but that doesn't cost him. Into the final corner, we saw Hogan have a good run off of here. What about Hugh? Oh, it just does not look to be able to get the throttle down well enough.
Yeah, you can see it in the second part of the straights. It's difficult for him as well to stay close over the bump of turn 1. Not close enough. Different braking areas where they choose to position the car. Hugh Hecox through the Andretti hairpin cannot get close enough to put it side by side. Good battle though, even though they dropped Ian Hecox by around half a second.
Imagine even longtime fans watching this are saying, wait, I thought Andretti was turn 1. But yeah, that left-hand kink on the front stretch is technically counted as turn 1, but most cars it's just as straightaway as right under the gearbox of Billy Bob Wright. Hugh Hecox continues to threaten, but just can't do anything with it. Now through the treacherous turn 6, Billy Bob Wright looking very strong, and he once again streaks away.
It is almost like Hugh Hecox is just so incredibly strong under braking, but on corner exit, that's really where Billy Bob makes the difference. And man, the acceleration out of the corners, that is gold at the moment, and that's just helping Billy Bob to stay in front. And you can see here through turn 9, through turn 10, how close Hugh Hecox can get, probably here in the last corner as well. Just brakes all the way towards the gearbox of the car in front, but the under throttle again. You can just see it visually. Several car legs that are immediately lost by Hugh Hecox. And that means that he has no opportunity to get the car side by side in the Andretti hairpin.
So you're telling me the younger Hecox needs to be a little bit more patient and back the corner up?
It could be patience. It could also maybe be a setup choice. That there's different setups between the two drivers that allow Hugh Hecox to be stronger on brakes, but a little bit less strong on corner exit, and that's helping Billy Bob Wright.
Yeah,
So we see a car going backwards on the track. That's Jasmine Beach in P24. So he had some problems in the corkscrew. Was it all on her own? Didn't hit the wall. Gets it going again, being passed by several of the leaders.
Yeah, Michelle Dudignon put in another lap on Jasmine. As, wow, actually, Michelle's opened up the gap on Mick now to 2 seconds. Mick's at least keeping him honest. They've really dropped Ove train grade at this point because it's 5 seconds back to third, but doesn't seem like Claridge has the measure of the Frenchman today. He's got to hope for a mistake or some traffic.
Some good battling is happening at the moment for P17. Andrew Eng has just overtaken, who's that? Telmo Amaral in P18. And those two, that battle basically means that once Andrew Eng is released, he is gone. But Telmo Amaral has to battle hard against Andres Bruno behind him. Mind you, this is the battle for P18 at the moment. Behind them as well, Marco Raffioli is also not that far behind. So three cars are quite close together.
Almiral had a mistake through the corkscrew, and that allows Bruno through. Nicely advantageous for the number 17. And, have we had another problem with Stefan Schlacker? I think we have. He's pulled over at the side of the track. I think he managed to catch the wall.
Oh yeah, out of the last corner. We mentioned before that several cars had trouble putting the power down there. You can see it. He's actually doing it all on his own through the last few corners. But once he's going through that final corner, he wants to go back on the throttle. The car just snaps away from him. And we saw several other drivers have the same, being able to catch it. But Stefan unfortunately couldn't do that. He hit the wall, and that meant that his race is over.
Unfortunate that he's had to retire early today. In the meantime, we should point out that Prado has started to close on Ove Trangarade for P3, so the podium is not settled by any means. There is only 1 second between the number 6 and the number 2. You see Ove in his traditional purple car being chased by the yellow and black of Eduardo Prado. Eduardo actually no slouch because he's rated number 2 in this field with a 5,500 I rating.
Very, very impressive. All very high I ratings in the top end of this field between Michel Dudillon, Prado, Claridge and Roman Pawlowski. Interesting battle shaping up there, but the most interesting battle at this moment is still the one between Billy Bob and Hecox for P6. Hecox is still there trying to put some pressure, and it almost seems like Ian Hecox has lost even more time to his two drivers in front, like Billy Bob Wright is finding pace a little bit.
Yeah, Ian is a full second back from Hugh now. He just can't seem to keep up with his son. Even still, I wonder if once Hugh manages to get past Billy Bob, if Billy Bob Wright will fall back into the clutches of Ian. How slow is his pace at this point? But that is a question that will only be answered if we see Hugh Hecox somehow manage to overtake Billy Bob, and so far he's not been successful. Down into the Andretti hairpin one more time. I said that Billy Bob is used to withstanding pressure, and he is certainly proving that true. Though he's had small little slip-ups here and there, nothing has opened the door wide enough that Hugh has been able to step through, and they are now well past the halfway point in this race.
I have to say Billy Bob looks fantastic, so consistent at the moment. The last 6 laps of Billy Bob Wright have all been within 0.3 of each other, and he closed it out with his personal best last time around to 22.0. So it looks like Billy Bob is just getting more and more into the rhythm of the race. You can see there on the bottom of your screen how consistent Billy is. Also Hugh Hecox, but remember Hugh Hecox is being held back a little bit by Billy Bob Wright. If he was released, who knows how quick Hugh Hecox could go. But like I said, Billy Bob Wright seems to be more and more finding his rhythm, and that's actually helping, because visually, if you look at the battle between Hugh and Billy, it seems like those cars are stretching away from each other slightly.
As we watch this battle, let's keep it on screen. We've had Stefan join us in the booth after his accident. Steph, we understand that a lot of problems started with a little bit of contact in the first lap that we missed.
Well, you can say that it was a little bit of contact, but yeah, turn 4, I don't know, Ian just maybe overlooked me, but he ran me out of room and then quite heavily sent me flying, damaging my front and rear right corners. It's also the reason why I went off track at turn 6. Pretty much sent me all the way down to last place. But yeah, it's just what it is. This car, you have so much to manage in the car already. So it sometimes can happen that you overlook a competitor.
That's understandable. Well, commiserations, Stefan. Hopefully we'll see a little bit better results next week.
Yeah, I sure do hope so. I will be most definitely back.
And apparently, Mick Claridge, who missed an incident there. Oh, before we go to that, we've got... Oh, we just stepped away. We're still live here because there was nearly a pass there between Prado and Schragrade. Ove going wide out of the penultimate corner. He had already been caught. We were watching it during the interview that Prado was hounding him at every corner. Another big slide from the Norwegian. He still holds on to the spot, but this has heated up something fierce.
Absolutely, Eduardo Prado is prodding at the moment, trying to get by the Norwegian. He doesn't have to fear anything from the car behind because Roman Pawlowski is several seconds behind P4, so he can just fully focus on the Norwegian in front. As they come out of turn 4, gap is stretching slightly. One of the best overtaking opportunities. We don't have a lot of good ones, of course. We mentioned that before, but the corkscrew corner, that's always one of the places on track that you can try it. But for that, you need a good run here out of turn 6. You need to hit the apex well. Eduardo does it slightly better than Overtrangerate in front, but not enough to close the gap and put it side by side. So then you just need to stay calm. Put it through this corner. Go well through Rainy Curve, through turn 10, and then try and move into the final corner. You can see Overtrangerate struggling a little bit with understeer. That doesn't help him. It seems like he could hit the apex even despite that understeer slightly better than Eduardo. Towards the last corner, it doesn't seem like Prado is close enough to try and move. He stays behind. Out of the last corner, he needs a good exit. This is the best overtaking opportunity, but it seems like Overtrangerate has him covered this time around. Good exit from the Norwegian out of the final corner.
I would say that Ove seems a little edgy, but this is just the way that he drives his car, I think. He loves a loose machine, and he's certainly keeping it underneath him when he needs to, but it gives us some hairy moments between himself and Prado. Stays within half a second right behind the Scandinavian driver.
Behind them, battle for P8, it is Bruce Nelson, just got by Ian Hecox. Great overtaking maneuver from Bruce Nelson there. We maybe can go to a replay of that moment, because there was actually a good run from Snelson that started all the way in the final corner already when Bruce Nelson tried to go around the outside. You can see it here, around the outside. A little bit of a wiggle as they went on the power, but just so much closer than any other battle we've seen, and that's all the distance that he needed to put his nose into turn 1, and then you have the perfect line to break on the inside for the Andretti hairpin. So Bruce Nelson elevates himself to P8.
Nicely done. Bruce having started in 11th, this has been a good climb for the number 7 car. They come down through the corkscrew, a little wide there for Ian Hecox. He definitely looks like he's struggling here as the race progresses. Wonder if some of the drivers are just experiencing the tires overheating a bit with the temperatures we've got on the track surface. Anybody who's sliding them around is paying the consequences.
Absolutely, like when we were seeing the overtaking opportunity almost of Prado on Trangerade, we wanted to mention that Mick Claridge had a hairy moment a few moments before into the corkscrew. Just now Roman Pawlowski had a lot of trouble as well, slowing his car down in the final corner. So several drivers seem to be struggling with grip at the moment, Joe. You could really say that maybe the temperature is the one to blame for that, just warming the tires up more than they expected to. And that's giving the drivers a little bit of difficulty at the moment. On screen we see Overtrangerate still leading Eduardo Prado as he reaches the corkscrew. Now one of the things that might help Eduardo in this race, trying to overtake, is traffic, because just in front of them is the battle for P18. Telmo Almoral leading Marco Raffaoli. If those two drivers are not looking in the rearview mirrors at the moment, that might be the perfect opportunity for Eduardo to surprise Overtrangerate.
I think Eduardo's got to get a little bit closer. He's dropped off slightly, and I think that started in turn 6 where he went a little wide, caught the dirt, and had to slow himself up. So Trangrade, as he continues to approach Ravioli, who almost gets into the back of Almiral, slides the car around, tries to collect it. That forces Trangrade to go slightly offline, stays out of the lapped driver. So does Eduardo Prado. Disaster averted, but just barely. Watch the replay one more time. This will be great to see from above. Marco does not like the Andretti hairpin.
No, he did the same a few laps ago, if I remember correctly, with Colin Coker, and this is almost a replica of that moment. Luckily for everyone involved, nothing happened this time around, but that does allow Eduardo to put some more pressure on Trangrade. The gap between these two drivers now down to less than 0.4 of a second through the corkscrew chicane. Eduardo Prado has to close down a few more car lengths before he can be close enough to try and move in the final corner. Good run from him through turn 9 here.
Well, we've been making a big deal out of Eduardo here, but with this being such a niche community that whenever we have someone new show up and they're competitive, it is a big deal. Let's hope that Eduardo sticks around and keeps himself in the hunt for things, because fighting for podiums is hard to come by in this series. More traffic in front. This is Bruno and Ang also for position. And wow, look at that. Very gentlemanly move by Bruno. He gives up a lot of time on his rival, and he's going to get it back because Ang goes completely off course. And in fact, he's going to get the spot as the green car actually has to wait to return to the track surface.
It's a shame for Andrew Ang, who had just passed Bruno in a few corners before that. So all the hard work to nothing as Trangrade slides very much through turn 5. This might be the opportunity that Prado was waiting for. He now has a speed, one car length between the two. As they reach turn 6, you need a good exit here and try it in the corkscrew. You need a lot of courage to do it here, but Prado is in the perfect position to do so. Under braking, he stays on the racing line, doesn't have to throw it on the inside. He chooses to follow through Rainy Curve.
Whew, this onboard shot really gives you a good idea of how much Trangrade is chucking this car into the corner. I cannot believe how sideways he drives this thing and manages to hold on to it. This has been a fantastic fight as he closes in the final hairpin. Can he get the launch off the corner, though? That's the question. The answer is no. Trangrade keeps himself safe once more. Up and over the first corner through the crest. The car once again. He still holds on to it. Prado has no way to get to the inside, but is given space at the corner. This time Trangrade overshoots it, and Eduardo finally gets the job done. Patience is a virtue.
Absolutely, and I think that Trangrade will probably just be happy to only lose one position there, because he came so close to actually losing complete control of his car. Let's take a look here on board. Over the crest there, you can see the car starts his line. Counter steer, again counter steer. And once he finally gets the car under control, he has to take the wider line, and that's all that Eduardo needed to get a P3 position.
As we come back live, he's not given up on it despite sawing numerous logs on that wheel. Trangrade has managed to collect himself and stays right underneath Eduardo Prado, giving him a taste of his own medicine that he's been giving to the Scandinavian for a number of laps. Don Good is ahead of them. That's the car that you see up in front. Beautifully done. Don just pulls out of the way. Meanwhile, on screen, you could see that Dudignon continues to set the pace as he gets another fastest lap. He is 6 seconds ahead of Mick Claridge. We don't need to go there at this point. It's sort of a non-race with 3 laps to go.
I'm just so curious how quick Eduardo can be without a Norwegian just in front of him. And if you can actually gap over Trangrade a little bit, or if the Norwegian can put another move on the car in front and retake the podium position. As they go through turn 4 at the moment, it's difficult to say, Joe. I would almost say that Eduardo, with no traffic involved, no traffic in front of them, is just finding his rhythm and is trying to drive those quali laps that he did earlier, trying to drive away from Trangrade.
It does look like he's edging away a bit by bit. At first, it seemed that Trangarade was going to stick with him. Another little bobble clipping the dirt out of turn 6 for Trangarade sends him farther back. It is now 6/10 between the two of them.
Yeah, maybe we can in the meantime take a look at the battle for P6 because we looked at it before and it's on Billy Bob Wright leading Hecox in the battle for P6. The gap between them, I don't think it has been bigger than 1 second all race long. Like in elastic, sometimes it's almost a second and sometimes it's less than 2/10 of a second. But they're still very close now. Unfortunately, Hecox, he has been overtaken by Bruce Nelson, and Bruce Nelson is still very far away from Hecox. So this will stay a 2-car battle on the final 2 laps of the race. But these 2 drivers will battle it out. Who will finish P6?
Here's another one that has been spending a long time trying to crack this nut, and Billy Bob Wright, unfortunately, is not giving in. They have fallen way off of Roman Pavlovsky, who is ahead of them in 5th place, 10 seconds up to Roman. So really them battling won't hurt them too badly, as they won't lose time that is going to allow them a pass on the car ahead.
Now, maybe it's a good time to put the camera on someone we haven't talked a lot about. That's Rob Olynyk, who's currently driving a P13. Because Rob Olynyk, viewers might remember that at the beginning of the race he had to serve a black flag penalty, probably for a foul start. He dropped all the way down the order. In the meantime, he has recovered, drove himself to P13. It's a really good recovery race from Rob Olynyk. He actually is still on the lead lap, despite that foul start and the penalty that he had to serve. So, despite all that trouble, still a good result from Rob Olynyk trying to recover like that.
Still speeding away from everybody. Michel Dudignon with another fastest lap. And there you see the Frenchman on screen. He's led every single lap since the drop of the green. And he's got just this one more to go before he takes his second victory of the season. We'll have to break in if we get a battle between those 2 other cars we've watched. 2 other battles we've watched all race long that have been oh so close, but I think a little love deserves to be given to Michel after the race that he's run. Even though we haven't really watched to see if there's been many mistakes, even if there has, I'd say this has been phenomenal. A great day for the number 1 car. Down through the corkscrew for the last time, a gap of 7.5 seconds. He is pretty safe at this point, out of rainy curve. And in fact, it's gone up to 12 seconds. Mick must have had a cut course back there. We don't need to go to that at this point. Michel Dudignon won at his home track in France. He's going to come over to the States and win here in California. Michel Dudignon takes the victory at Laguna Seca.
Mick Claridge is coming to the last corner now. You said we don't have to go to it. He didn't get a cut course penalty. He almost crashed himself out of the wall. Go to P3, however, over Trangarade, putting pressure on Prado, but it doesn't seem like the Norwegian has anything to get that position away. P6 behind them is the battle between Hecox. He's still close behind Billy Bob Wright. Doesn't seem like it's close enough, Joe.
Yeah, all he's got to do is accelerate cleanly off of the final corner. And I'd say he's got it. Wow, what a run by Billy Bob Wright to hold on to that for literally the entire race to take 6th place. Back in 10th, you've got Philip Urquhart and David Rossi. Rossi going to look around the outside. Is that lap traffic in front of him? Yes, it is. And Philip, I think, is going to hold on to get a top 10 for this race.
Let's go, because what I wanted to say was Mick Claridge. He almost threw his Raceway in the last lap in turn 6. Let's go to a replay of that, because he was trying, I think, maybe to put his car, maybe get the quickest lap or something. Maybe he comes in for an interview. We can ask him, because this is in the last lap. He comes towards turn 6, almost loses control of his car. He hits that curb zone, the red curbs on the inside, very hard. Hits the wall very hard as well. Actually goes flying on 2 wheels, and he is lucky that he actually is able to finish the race after that.
That is incredible. Mick has even entered into the race chat afterwards that he was amazed he didn't get damage from that. He had to have gotten damage, just I guess not enough that it forced him to retire before taking the checkered flag. What a lucky break. So he'll get 2nd place as we come back live. Now that's going to finish out this race. We're going to take a quick break here, and on screen you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC before we come back with driver interviews as well as the official results. Welcome back to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We just watched round 2 of the Grand Prix Legends Series, and Michel Dudignan is 2 for 2 so far this season over Mick Claridge, who has gotten second place in both rounds. Third place got switched up though. Eduardo Prado, late in the race, made the pass stick and held Ove Trangrade back, who tried to challenge him back for the position until the checkered flag. It wasn't meant to be. Trangrade off the podium in 4th. Roman Pawlowski, anonymous this race, but really shouldn't have been. Roman ran to a top 5, having started 7th. Billy Bob Wright, big credit goes to him, from 9th on the grid to 6th and withstanding immense pressure all race long. From Hugh Hecox, who is our top Formula 2 driver, we believe, finishing in 7th. Bruce Snilson takes P8, and Ian Hecox got overtaken by Bruce about halfway through for 9th. Philip Urquhart rounds out your top 10.
Just outside of that is David Rossi. He finishes in P11. Behind him it's Steve Hogan. Good race for him. He just managed to stay in front of Rob Olynyk, who had that presumably false start at the beginning of the race and had a great recovery after that. Grant Patullo, he's the first car one lap down in P14 in front of Don Good. Andres Bruno, we saw him fight quite a bit with people like Andrew Eng, who finished P17, and Telmo Amaral, who finished in 18th position. Marco Ravioli, who had some contact with Colin Coker during the race, comes home in P19, and Jeff Bixby rounds out the top 20.
Colin Coker 2 laps down, and then you get to the DNFs from there. Giulio Forcolin, 22nd, Jasmine Beach, 23rd, Stefan Schlacker, 24th, and I think Matthew Wilson was a did not start today, potentially, because it doesn't look like he completed any laps. With that, we've got Mick Claridge ready to talk to us. Mick, unfortunately, Michelle is now 2 for 2, and you are also 2 for 2, specifically second place.
Yeah, hi Joe. Yeah, that was tough, man. I had real trouble. I've had trouble all week with a car setup, just trying to keep the tyres under control, you know. And I don't know if you caught any on board with me when I was losing the rear and stuff out the corners, but really finding it hard to keep the tyres, you know, cool at the right temperature, just overheating them. And not only that, but just really struggling to get them back down to temperature, you know, after they overheated.
We did notice that it was pretty warm temperatures on the track surface today, so we wondered if keeping the tires cool would be an issue. That said, it did seem like in qualifying, at least, you had close-paced Michelle. Was it all down to the tires and race pace that forced you to fall back the way you did?
I got a really good lap there in qualifying. I don't normally get good laps in qualifying. I'm normally horrendous in qualifying, really, compared to my race pace. So that was a bit of a one-off. But Michelle probably got a bit of a slow lap in qualifying as well. I would have expected him to be about 2 or 3 tenths faster than me in quali as well. But yeah, no, it was, I mean, it's not the weather that give me the troubles this week. I mean, I've had trouble keeping the tyres cooled down in cold conditions. I've just had like a really bizarre week with the setup. So Michelle's shared a setup today in practice, and he was running about 3 pounds lower than me. And I took it out on track, and I couldn't even get around the first lap because it just wouldn't grip. So real problems, you know, this week. So yeah, I'm glad to get this week over, to be honest with you.
Hey Mick, Johan here. Also from me, congratulations on your P2. One moment that I kind of wanted to talk with you about is that last lap, because it almost seems like you have the sturdiest Lotus 49 of the whole field. What exactly happened there in turn 6?
Yeah, my Lotus isn't made out of carbon fibre, is it, on the right-hand side, is it? It was pretty strong there, wasn't it? I couldn't believe I didn't get damaged. And I mean, I've not come off there a lot this week. That's probably about the third or fourth time that's happened, you know. And as you know yourself, it's so easy to do that when you just hit that curb on the left too hard. But yeah, I couldn't believe I didn't have damage. I was just lucky that I didn't have, you know, Eduardo and Uwe right behind me there, because, you know, that would have lost me 2 places. But yeah, it's just a freaky thing. I really can't believe how I didn't get damaged. Not even on the rear. You always get damage on the rear from a hit like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was amazing to see that the car actually held it and you could stay in P2 and finish the race. Now, the one thing that I wanted to mention is, or ask you, is this race we raced at Laguna Seca. I always feel it's a very narrow track, difficult to overtake. Next week we go to Oulton Park. Do you feel that that track is kind of similar to this, to Laguna Seca? Will be difficult to overtake there as well? Or do you think that it will be a little bit more easy to get by the rivals?
It's a weird one, Alton Park, because although it's really thin, I sort of call it a mini Nürburgring because it's so thin and it's just so twisty. I mean, the layout we're using has got a long straight on the back as well, so it really is like a mini Nürburgring. But I sort of find it a bit easier to fight there because there's more grip. So, you know, you struggle on these low grip circuits, and, you know, maybe that's probably one of the reasons why I'm overdriving maybe and causing the tyres to overheat. But there you can sort of attack the track and attack, you know, a lot more. But yeah, I mean, it is tough. It's tough to pass anywhere on any track really, but you know, unless you're at Monza or Le Mans. But yeah, no, it's a good one, you know. But yeah, it's a tight, twisty circuit, but that'll be good fun, you know.
I expect we'll have a lot of good fun. It is a difficult circuit. That was Mick Claridge, our second place finisher here today, who would have been a little closer to Michel Dudignon, but escaped disaster on the final lap. That's going to allow us to close up. And of course, we want to give a big thank you to the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage, as well as a big thank you to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe, and then you'll get all of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series in your YouTube feed. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Amjad, and Dougie, as well to our spotter, Don Peak, in the background. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, next race, we're going over the pond once again to the Oulton Park track. That'll be the version that they used to race back in the old days with no chicanes on Saturday, June 23rd at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.